The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Monday, October 11th, 2021 will please come to order. For those of you who are in attendance, if you would, please check your cell phones to make sure that they are on silent or vibrate. For anyone else who has had a hat, and thank you for somebody for being really gracious with removing theirs, if you would remove any hats. For those who are participating remotely, once again this evening we are affording the opportunity for the public to participate remotely in our meeting. To that end, members of the public are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the public comments, members of the public will once again be asked to place their microphone on mute. And we thank you all, whether you're here in person or remotely, for your cooperation with us. And with that, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. DeMaid?
Here.
Mr. Benicki?
Here.
Mr. Hazen?
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Here.
Mr. Emmons? Mr. Belovich?
Here.
Mr. Compton? Mrs. Volker?
Here.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of September 20th, 2021. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President. We have petition number 2021-16 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a rezoning future outlet from C2 Shopping Center to C7 Automobile-Oriented Restaurant Commercial. This is signed by John Silverman. We have petition number 2021-17.
If we could for a moment, those of you who are participating remotely, if you would, please once again check to confirm that your microphone is muted until we open the floor to public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have petition number 2021-17 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is annexation and rezoning of 12452 and 12434 Lincoln Way East from I-1 to C1 General Commercial and I-1 Light Industrial. This is signed by Joe Grable and Robert Murray.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, so we'll move into ordinances on first reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-35, an ordinance fixing the salaries of certain elected officials of the City of Mishawaka for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022.
Thank you. Proposed ordinance 2021-35 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-36, an ordinance fixing the salaries of all employees of the City of Mishawaka except sworn public safety, Mishawaka Park Department, elected officials, and the Mishawaka Utilities for the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, for the year beginning January 1st, 2022.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-36 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-37, an ordinance fixing the salaries of all sworn public safety employees of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, for the year beginning January 1st, 2022.
Proposed ordinance 2021-37 will also be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee. Resolutions.
Resolution R 2021-24, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving the interlocal agreement for the operation of a consolidated public safety answering point in St. Joseph County, Indiana.
Thank you. At this point, the chair would entertain a motion to postpone the public hearing on proposed resolution 2021-24 until our next regularly scheduled council meeting 2 weeks from this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to postpone the public hearing on proposed resolution 2021-24 until our next regularly scheduled council meetings. Are there any additional questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying Nobody's participating remotely.
Oh, they're not. God. Okay, great.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The matter will be postponed until our next regularly scheduled public meeting.
Resolution R 2021-25, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, adding parcels to the city's property acquisition list associated with a previously approved Common Council Resolution 2014-07, which approved an order of the City of Mishawaka Plan Commission approving a certain declaratory resolution and amendment to the boundaries of the Northwest Area Improvement Project, consolidation of the South Side Economic Development Area, and the Northwest Improvement Project into one consolidated area improvement project, and an amendment to the Economic Development Plan for the Consolidated Area Improvement Project adopted by the City of Mishawaka Redevelopment Commission.
Thank you. This is a public hearing on proposed resolution 2021-25. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Good evening. I'm Chris Jamrose. I'm city engineer at 600 East 3rd Street. I wish to speak in favor, requesting 505 North Cedar Street to city's acquisition list. This property is located northwest corner of the intersection of Alice Street and Cedar Street, and it's part of the larger Cedar Street redevelopment area. The acquisition of this parcel was pursued because the homes themselves are non-conforming, and most of the Cedar Street homes themselves are actually encroaching into the right-of-way. And pursuing this acquisition, it will allow us to not have to relocate the planned pathway, and it will, it's already in fair condition, and most of all, it will be easy for us to, it's a double lot, and it will be easy for us to redevelop in the future. So we just figured it was the right time to ask for this acquisition.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Mrs.
President,
Volker.
Thank you. So the plan for this property would be to have somebody put a residential,
Correct. We are similar to the hospice site, is the intent.
so once we purchase it, will we hold it? Will we make it available? What's the?
The plan is to raise it so that we can no longer have, it's too close, it's actually in the right-of-way. So we'll be able then to complete the pathway that we are trying to do at this very moment in time. And then at the redevelopments, they do intend to put it back out on the market.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you for the information that you've shared with us. Just for the record, as we say from time to time, with regard to the purchase of this property, the funding source for the purchase would be our TIF funding, is that correct?
Correct?
And we've used that to add additional properties to the acquisition list over the course of, now it seems like many years, have we not? And with regard to this particular property, just for the benefit of the public, the contingent purchase price is $92,000, is that correct?
Per agreement, that is correct.
Okay. And that is subject to some appraisals and what have you. So there's always a process that state law sets out when we undertake these acquisitions.
Right, correct, which the agreement does outline.
Absolutely. Thank you for those clarifications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else physically present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If so, please come forward. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Please unmute your microphone. Then is there anyone physically present who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? Please come forward to the podium. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes,
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Yes.
The Proposed resolution passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now move into ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-31, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is PUD amendment to remove restrictions as a senior-only complex to become market rate, non-age restricted Whispering Pines Apartments.
Mr. President.
Mr. Benicki.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to request that we postpone this until our next meeting of October 25th. Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2021-31 until our next regularly scheduled council meeting on October 25th of 2021. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The matter will be postponed until our meeting of October 25th of this year.
Proposed ordinance number 2021-32, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is rezoning for redevelopment with 3-tenant commercial building at 422 West McKinley.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2021-32, report that they have examined said matter, and in their opinion, should be adopted. This is signed by the majority of the committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. This is the second reading of public hearing on proposed ordinance 2021-32. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Good evening, Council. My name's Jeff Ballard. I'm with Dan Charner and Associates. We're located at 1643 Commerce Drive in South Bend. I'm representing GLC Map McKinley Trust and Allrig USA, the contingent purchaser of the property. Currently, the property is Zone C2, Shopping Center Commercial, C4 Auto-Oriented Commercial, and C7 Auto-Oriented Restaurant Commercial. The developer wishes to purchase the property and rezone it all to C1 Commercial District. The purpose for the rezoning is to allow for redevelopment of the property to build a new structure that would contain 3 tenants, including a restaurant with a drive-through facility, a retail store, and a sit-down restaurant in that single building. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ballard? Mr. Benicki.
Thank you. Mr. Ballard, so we got a brand-new car wash on the corner, and then we're proposing this, and then we have another one that's going to be coming down the pipe here pretty quickly,
Another what?
project in that same parking lot.
Okay.
My concern is traffic. We're taking a parking lot, it's a pretty big parking lot, and now we're going to be trying to move all these different cars through the same parking lot. My concern is cars backing up onto Grape Road and McKinley. How do we handle the traffic?
The traffic's coming in through a central location that's been designated by meeting with planning. We have a preliminary site plan that's been included in the package. You should see that and should have seen it by now. So the traffic comes into the site from the north, I believe, and let me see, I've got a copy of it here. There's enough separation between Grape Road and the entrance on the west side of the property, and then there's 2 in and outs that come in from the north. And the property is self-contained, so no direct traffic will access Grape Road from the parcel itself.
So the entrance closest, off of Grape Road, closest to McKinley, that entrance, when they put in this car wash, is almost worthless. I mean, it's to the point where that should almost be closed for access. And then the access off of McKinley, right next to the car wash, between your building and their building, it was supposed to be like 3 wide. Well, they went from 3 wide down to 1 wide. So I don't know how we're going to move that traffic in and out with, and everybody's going to depend on traffic flow. Obviously, you're going to
Right.
have a drive-through, they're going to have a drive-through, and you got a drive-through car wash.
According to planning, and we worked with planning on this, and they've okayed and approved the concept that we have here. So traffic will move east and west on the north side of the boundary of this property, and then north and south off of McKinley. So there's plenty of access to the north and to the west, and everything else is basically corralled around it so that it doesn't impact the site directly. So in other words, if you're on the property to the east, you're not going to be able to cut through this property to get to any of that other access. So it's basically self-contained. So you have access from the north and from the west. It's self-contained inside the property. There's two-way traffic inside the parcel itself, so it should move smoothly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Ballard? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. Hicksaball. At this point, can you share who the restaurant would be?
I know of the drive-through potentially being Starbucks, but that's just been thrown up in the air.
That's nice.
And I will, as I said the last time I met, I think was with Plan Commission, I will not confirm nor deny
Sure.
that is the use, but
right.
that's been
Thank
thrown around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Ballard? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else physically present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please unmute your microphone. Is there anyone physically present who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. And then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? Hearing none, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksaball?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 7-0. Proposed ordinance number 2021-33, excuse me, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is rezoning from C1 General Commercial to, and R1 Single Family Residential to C6 Linear Office Commercial, 821 West Jefferson Boulevard.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance 2021-33, report that they have examined said matter and in their opinion should be adopted. This is signed by the majority of the committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second?
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. This is the second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2021-33. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
My name's Terry Lang from Lang, Feeney & Associates. Our address is 715 South Michigan Street in South Bend. I represent the petitioner here. Before you is a petition that's been used for the last 25 to 30 years as a guitar studio for Mr. Steve Miller, and his wife owns the property also. The lot on the corner that has been their parking lot is zoned commercial. The house that they've been using as the studio is residential, and what they are looking to do is to retire and would like to be able to market the house as a office use. We sat down and talked with the planning department and said we'd like to continue to use the use that's been there for the last 30 years as an insurance office or financial planner or another music teachers type studio. And the petition before you, the staff had recommended that we rezone it to this C6, which is the impact that has been there for the last 30 years. and that's the reason for the petition before you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lang? Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Hi, Terry, it's good to see you. I've talked to Mr. Miller several times about this project, and they're just super conscientious about it, and, you know, really wanted to do the right thing and make it, you know, just make it right for the city, and I really applaud them. I really applaud Stephen for his efforts in making sure that it's a good fit for the city as he moves on in his kind of life.
Well, and one of the things you need to remember also is they just live a couple blocks away, so they are, you know, living in that same area, and they don't want to do anything to hurt the area.
Yeah, he's a very conscientious man, so thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Lang? Mr. Benicki?
Yeah, so the parking lot right now is just all stone.
Right,
That
it
that will
currently-
be improved then?
Yeah, once it is rezoned and they find a buyer, it will be, they'll let the contingent purchaser know that improvements will need to be done to pave the parking lot, adequate stormwater drainage, and necessary landscaping to meet the ordinance as necessary for that zoning district then.
Okay, so, I mean, is there any way to put teeth in that? Because, you know, let's say somebody buys it and says, well, you know what? I just don't have the money right now. How do we put teeth into that to make sure that it's done, short of doing it before it's sold?
Well, and that's the hard part, I guess the real estate firm that is marketing the property will need to be upfront with, you know, the potential buyers that, you know, improvements will need to be done, you know, bring in the appropriate stormwater management, paved parking lot, and necessary landscaping for that. So it's something that will have to be marketed in that fashion.
So, I mean, basically, if they go to get a loan, right now, it's non-compliant with what they're going to apply for.
Correct.
So the bank may say, if it's not compliant, why would we finance it?
Well, and that's,
I mean, that's on
it's a
them,
little
but-
bit of a catch-22. Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that it gets done.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Lang?
I would just follow up a comment, Mr. Benicki. I know that Mr. Miller's working with a reputable real estate firm in the community who is well-known to us in the community, and I think is committed to, you know, following through with, you know, the plan.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Volker. Anything else for Mr. Lang? Then, Mr. Lang, let me add just some of the comments that my colleagues have made. I live in fairly close proximity to this property and drive by it all the time, and I have never seen any problems with it either. So I appreciate how, you know, how the underlying landowner has taken care of the property over the course of time. With regard to the issue that Mr. Benicki raised, clearly that would be part of the final site plan that would be submitted as well, the parking lot improvements. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then to follow up on that, as you stand before us this evening, are you authorized to make a representation to the council on behalf of the landowner that the parking lot improvements will be fulfilled subject to the approval of the final site plan?
As part of the final site plan, yes, that would be part of the next step once there would be a contingent purchaser for that.
Okay. And then last but not least, although the uses that you've suggested, I can't imagine would be of objection to anyone. If memory serves, the house that's immediately adjacent to this property is currently on the market. So perhaps not so much of a question as a comment. If anything can be done to communicate with the realtor or whomever is listing that property, the planned use here, so that I would hate for somebody to buy into that home and then be disappointed. I can't imagine that they would be, but different people have different opinions. So whatever you could do to work with the realtor for these folks to make sure that the property immediately next door that's on the market has some notice.
Is
of what's
aware
going
that
on
it's being rezoned, yeah, we can make sure that happens.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Anything else for Mr. Lang? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else physically present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone physically present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? If so, please come forward. And then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition to this proposed ordinance? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Hearing none, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade,
Yes.
Mr. Benicki,
Yes.
Mr. Hazen,
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti,
Yes.
Mr. Belovich,
Yes.
Mrs. Volker,
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbach.
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 7-0. Proposed ordinance number 2021-34. This is an ordinance for appropriation of tax rates. This is the civil city budget and tax levy for 2022. Vote, or no vote this evening, public hearing only.
Thank you. Then, consistent with the requirements of state law, we will open the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2021-34. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Mr. Mayor. Sat too long.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. Dave Wood, Mayor, here to speak in reference to the civil city budget for which we're having a public hearing on tonight. You know, one of my predecessors, Mayor Buter, used to call our process budgeting more of an art than a science. And that is because it's, in many cases, a best guess, a projection based on current realities, income, revenue, expenses, things happening out in in the marketplace and all kinds of different factors. And so based on that, it's always our best projection. But I'm happy to report that it is more of a science now than it has ever been. And that is because of the countless hours of dedicated service of our controller and her staff, all of our department managers, our workforce, collective bargaining units, council, Board of Public Works, and many others who are involved in this process. It is a process that begins in June every year and takes up quite an awful lot of our time. But it is really essentially the most important thing that we do. That's why we're here, and budgets are about priorities. We certainly have spent a lot of time talking about budget conditions in the past, predominantly as it relates to what we called the fiscal cliff. That was the property tax caps and such that didn't really impact St. Joe County, Lake County, and Mishawaka until 2019. We're now in that, and our preparations over the past many years to get us to a point where we are in a reasonable shape to be able to deal with it. Those efforts have paid off. We have built up some reserves. We have planned conservatively. We have spent responsibly, and that has put us in a good position relative to most. And again, I want to thank all of the team, including yourselves, for that. This year, we certainly have some issues, and we will attempt to address those in the budget. And I will go through just some of our changes that we have in store. Most of the time, our budgets stay pretty constant, pretty much the same, but I will outline some of our ask in this year's budget. First of all, in the IT department, I believe our IT did an exceptional job dealing with the great challenge of our time, the pandemic. We had to change the way that we operate, and of course, communicating with our public is always our top priority, and our IT department was able to keep up with changing demands, allowed for public meetings. Well, that's great, but we have to have the ability to pull that off. And our IT department stepped up in a huge way, giving of their personal time and expertise to allow us to rapidly evolve. We do have a hole in that department, and that is assistant director. Most of our departments have some kind of assistants or the ability to, for a director to step aside, somebody to come in and kind of act while they're gone. That is not the case in code, so we are looking to add an assistant director position. We would fill that from within and add an additional $5,000 to the payroll. Perhaps our biggest priority this year will be in code enforcement. As you know, as we are all hearing and seeing out there, that code enforcement is becoming more and more challenging. Whether it is the routine calls for trash and debris, or long, tall grass and weeds, alley cleanup, substandard housing, which is becoming more and more of an issue. We have 4 code enforcement officers full-time that do an outstanding job in the city trying to keep up with the demand. We're at record levels of cases that we are seeing, record levels of reports and all of that. Our code enforcement director has to act as a code enforcement officer in a beat in the city. Well, I mean, that's certainly commendable to step up and do that. We all wear many hats here in the city, and we all take on responsibilities that go above what we're normally expected to do. What that does, though, is that it does not allow for us to focus in and do a deep dive on some of the bigger issues. And so the goal of this year's budget in code enforcement is that we want to add a new code enforcement officer so that we can put them in a beat, and then we can have our code enforcement director to have more time to mentor, to get involved intimately in code and cases and in the day-to-day management, not involved in a beat of his own, but then also give us more opportunity to pursue problem properties through, say, a hearing process that we have available, and working closely with our city attorney, dealing with some of the more problem properties and some of the issues that we would love to be able to devote more time to. And so that will allow him to do that. We also have in there, we have an aging fleet in that department, and so we would like to request new vehicles for that department as well, 2 new vehicles. Some big ticket items, certainly our fire, police, public safety in general is more than half of our budget. And so anytime we make changes, those typically are the biggest budget impacts when we make changes in those 2 departments, or if we buy equipment, or if we change salaries and things. And so we have in our fire department an increase to $538,533 for personnel services. What that does is not only does it factor in maybe some increased overtime, but certainly based on any salary increase we do, it pays for the salary increase, but all of the things that go along with the salary increase, such as increased overtime, such as perf payments, retirement, those types of things. And over in the police department, same thing, personnel services, that will see a big jump up to $600,205, but for exactly the same reason. The other small differences, deviations in salary will come from motor vehicle highway. I would like to recognize our street commissioner. Department manager manages a very large staff, deals with some significant challenges, especially as we are in a position where we're always looking for talent to come in to the city. In some departments, we struggle with that more than others. At the street department level, we see that issue more than probably any other department. But not only does he deal with that, the training things that need to happen there. It's a 24/7, 365 operation for which he is available all of that time. And so would like to bring his salary up in recognition that he essentially manages a vast department and organization within the city. He and the park superintendent would be roughly the same salary there. That's an addition at the street department MVH fund of about $4,635. Planning. As we're all doing more and more, planning is doing much more and much more. Obviously, we have a lot of big initiatives out there, a lot of big projects out there. City Hall, and then when we passed our, when you passed our stimulus program, $45,000 bond that allowed us to do many significant projects here within our community to stimulate the local economy and to help offset the impacts of COVID. We manage a lot of that in-house. And so predominantly through Ken Prince, our city planner now, who wears many, many hats, including deputy mayor, including president of Board of Public Works and Safety Utility Board, and other things. So we are looking to create an executive director level position in the planning department. We would also have a standalone senior planner position, and but what this would do, we would see most of these being filled from within, but it would create one FTE at the lower level for which we would go out and hire as we promote from within. It would allow for a little bit more talent in the department and predominantly to allow for some extra hands on deck in a department that quite frankly needs a lot of help in dealing with our big projects, big ticket items. Over on the public safety side, you're going to see a couple, or specifically a big credit as far as PSAP. You know all about that. So that will, as far as the public safety side, will be reduced by about $750,000. We will then see the offset come back through on the tax revenue side from local income taxes. It'll be impacted into our general fund. Then on the public safety side, we do have some big ticket items there too that we have to prioritize and make happen this year. We have been on a car buying spree at the Mishawaka Police Department. I believe we bought 18 last year. We are looking to buy an additional 12 police vehicles this year. Used to be that, they were pretty reasonable. Now they're over $50,000 for a fully equipped police vehicle. And we're lucky if we can get them in, in a reasonable amount of time. The lead time on those is stretching out more and more as supply chain issues and things of that nature come into play. But we're looking to do that this year. It's a big priority for us. That will allow us to replace essentially all of our 2013 Impalas, which right now are costing us substantially in maintenance. So each Impala can cost us $4,000 or $5,000 a year just in maintenance. So that adds up rather quickly. We're getting very good reports on our recent reliability of the vehicles that we're buying for our interceptors. Over at the fire department, it's time to replace our self-contained breathing apparatus. And so that's the air tanks for all of our firemen. That comes at a big cost of about $653,000. That will happen over the course of next year. You will see clinic services fall out of seated. That will go more into our self-insured line. We're still paying for clinic services. Just didn't want you to be confused about that. And then just kind of overall, the budget is increasing about 5.4% from 2021. And then that certainly, we have some of our bigger ticket items will be wages that will, come into, be paid out of this budget. Our tax rate is estimated to be about 2.08%, and that's down slightly from the 2.10 from 2021. And it's important to know that while we have built up some reserves, we're going to be eating into them this budget. So it's not that, we're seeing increases in revenue. There's still some uncertainty out there in regards to the pandemic and how that will impact us. But we will be eating into revenues, so that, into reserves. So that is certainly of concern to us here. Then, we try to be as innovative as we possibly can, and I think that our Mishawaka Bond Bank is one way where we've shown that we're doing best practice stuff in terms of budgeting. Big ticket items cost a lot of money these days. I remember back when Council Member Hicksonball and I were young, full of hair, and stepping onto the council, a fire engine might have cost a couple $100,000. Well, now our ambulances cost almost $300,000 plus. Engines now cost well north of $500,000. We need 2 of them. So that's not just something we can just pull out of our pocket every year and pay for. So that requires an awful lot of planning. But even more so, it requires us to be creative. So we are borrowing money from ourselves and paying it back over time in a way we can afford it. We're purchasing 2 new Sutphen fire engines out of our bond bank for $1.25 million next year. So this comes, obviously a priority is for us to keep our public safety departments well-equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. This doesn't even get into the facilities that we're getting ready to, are currently building, such as a new police department, or getting ready and planning to build, such as fire station number 2. So again, an awful lot of work goes into this. It is a big job. We rely on the expertise of consultants to help us with our long-term planning, comprehensive financial planning, but we rely on the work of a great public servant right here, Becky Miller, who will, I'm still getting used to it, Becky McGuire now, who I think is one of the best controllers in the state of Indiana, and her dedicated staff. So with that, I will take any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions from our wood? Mr. Belovich.
Mr. Mayor, the 12 police cars, are they all SUVs or are any of them cruisers?
So we have gone to all SUVs. So we bid it out. We bid it out publicly, and typically it's been Ford who responds to the bid, specifically Jordan Ford. It's been our only bidder recently. Ford no longer makes sedan police interceptors. They are only making the SUV version. So that's what we are getting, which we like having fleet commonality, makes maintenance easier than having, 3 or 4 kinds of vehicles in the fleet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment, and I've said this in years past, but Mrs. McGuire, you always do a wonderful job, and I always appreciate, and you as well, Mayor, but I always appreciate the opportunity to discuss budgets with each of the department managers. They're very meticulous about, thinking through their planning for the coming year, and it's always a great opportunity for myself to speak with them and kind of understand a little bit more about how their department is running. It gives us the opportunity to have an open communication, and so I think this year's process has gone well, and I just want to thank you, the administration, and the department managers for that process.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And there may be along the way some things that pop up. Right now, we are about fully staffed with the police department. We are expecting some retirements to hit, and so We have a pool that we're working on. We'll have another pool, or we typically do 2 a year. There may come a time in the very near future that we will be up here requesting more, say, public safety personnel in the form of police. If it becomes an urgent need, we won't wait till next budget year to do that. But the main thing is that we have to, we have some spots we need to fill. We can't just automatically fill them. We have to go through a big, long process. So we think we're going to have our hands full just filling the ones that we know we have retirements coming up for. So, but if we get caught up, we may be back up here and seeking some additional support throughout the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. Hicksaball. Just would like to echo Ms. Volker's comments, and extreme thanks for you, Ms. McGuire, all your department heads for taking the time to meet with all of us and the committees and go through line by line. Just to ask you a quick question regarding a comment that you had made, stating that the police Impalas are currently costing about $4,000 to $5,000 per year for maintenance. How much of that are we doing in-house?
We do an awful lot of that in-house. There might be, if it's an accident, that's something that it's not going to impact
source
the older
out.
vehicles. That's just random. But that's something we would source out. But what we see with some of the older vehicles is transmission replacement, some major engine, major suspension work. We do as much of it in-house as we can, and we have some pretty good expertise in-house. Some of it, though, especially the more major it gets, the more we source out.
Okay. But we do a fair amount in-house.
Yeah.
How is that staffed in terms of the demand of maintenance just on our own pool? I mean, are we able to keep up with what's required in that garage?
We're keeping up, just barely, but we are keeping up. And typically, I mentioned street department, used to be sewer department, get the job in the sewer department, and then people would work there for a little while, and then as positions open up, they would transfer internally, which we like because it's an opportunity to learn the culture of the city and take your expertise you've learned in one department and move to another one. Street department's become a little bit more of that entry-level department now where we're seeing, more people hiring on, and then others will leave to other departments maybe, or leave, just it's a difficult employment environment as far as attracting employees.
Sure. And just one other quick question regarding the central service building. How are we doing in terms of growth in there? Do we still have room to grow? I know when we first moved in there, we thought we had plenty of room, but I figured we'd fill that up pretty quickly.
So we have filled it up very quickly. We're pretty much maxed out. Electric department is using a chunk of that for storage. We just acquired, with the help of the council and adding a parcel to property acquisition, we've acquired property. We're building more of a storage facility over there for electric. So their stuff will be moving out. That'll give us a little bit of room. But we see a need for additional storage space, probably cold storage space. That's, when we go pick up picnic tables and all of the things that we're doing, and some of it has to be stored through the winter. We'd like a place to do that, so we're looking at options there. But that building is well used, and almost immediately became too small, kind of what we're thinking about with City Hall right now.
Right.
But still efficient, working well for us.
Great. Well, thank you for your answers, and please pass on our extreme thanks to all the department heads. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you. Other questions for Mayor Wood? And Mr. Mayor, I also want to thank you and Mrs. McGuire for the work that you have done, along with all the others involved in the process of putting this together. It clearly is not an easy task, but you do it very well. And as Mrs. Volker indicated, it makes for a long week for all of us, not just you, but the council when we have those budget meetings, but I think we all enjoy it, and it provides us with an opportunity to go beyond the dollars and cents at times and really have some valuable conversation about the operations of the city. So thank you to your department heads for their willingness to be patient with us throughout that process as well. Just to follow up on a couple things that you mentioned, I guess, a comment. I appreciate your suggestion that there may be an opportunity for us to increase our staffing in our public safety agencies, perhaps police in particular. And I'll go on record right now as being in support of that when the time is right. I think that as soon as we could make that happen, and I said, I'm sure you agree with me, that as we bring ourselves up to full strength, then to enhance our public safety numbers in terms of employees, I think is a good investment on behalf of the community. So thank you for those comments.
Well, part of that, too, is that we're coming into a negotiation year, and so that almost coincides a little bit with shift strength and minimum shift strength and different things, so.
Absolutely, it's all
Kind of fits more
interrelated.
next year than the.
And I think sometimes that's frustrating to all of us, that it's not as easy as snapping your fingers and making that change. There are a lot of moving parts, fiscal and otherwise, to that. But again, I appreciate your comments along those lines. Seems like it was a long time ago, but about 2 weeks ago, we were here to discuss the, just under $12 million in American Rescue Plan Act money that we're receiving from Congress and the Biden administration. Just for clarification for everyone, what you've discussed tonight, what we're considering with regard to the budget is separate and distinct from that money. That is a separate plan that we'll be putting together. It's a separate pot of money that we'll be spending on behalf of the community, correct?
That's correct. So none of the ARP funding will be a part of the civil city budget unless we can show revenue loss, in which case, in some future budget, it could show up there. But none in this budget here. Those two conversations are separate and distinct.
All right. And then I also appreciate your comments with regard to PSAP. We're talking about a $59 million budget, and the savings are significant. It's not the biggest item in the budget, but beyond the dollars and cents, I want to again thank you and others in the administration for working with the council and our friends in other local governmental units to make that happen. That's a significant benefit to us as a community, I believe, when we talk about increasing manpower, when we talk about buying new squad cars and fire trucks. Every little bit helps. So again, thank you for that collaborative process, and thank you once again to my colleagues on the council who worked on that with me as well. And then last but not least, you mentioned some of the additional positions that are projected as part of this budget and some of the dollars and cents impact, although I sense we'll have much more conversation about that when we get to the salary ordinances that are a separate issue. But one of the things that came up as part of the budget hearings that I think makes a great deal of sense is I applaud you and the controller and others for that comprehensive salary analysis that we're undergoing with the use of an outside consultant. I think we do everything we can every year with our budget to try to be as fair as we can with people with regard to compensation and benefits, but I'm really excited to see the results of that and perhaps open the door to an opportunity for us to, beyond what we do in a normal cycle, be able to make sure that we're market competitive with what we're paying folks. So thank you for that as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions for His Honor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone in the chambers who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Hearing none, then we will close the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2021-34. Final action on this proposed ordinance, the civil city budget, will take place at our next regularly scheduled meeting of October 25th. So thank you. And with that, we'll move into privilege of the floor. At this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor.
President, council members, don't want to wear out my welcome here, but I did want to share with you some, what I think is some exciting news, and that is that the city of Mishawaka received the placemaking award from AIM, which is Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, which is an association of all of the towns, cities, municipalities around the state of Indiana. We were at a conference last week where there was nearly 1,500 participants there from all over Indiana, and Mishawaka was blessed and honored to receive the Placemaking Award for Heroes Park, and that is the great work and recognition of the great work that my youth council students from Mishawaka High School, Penn High School, Marion High School did in designing their own park, a teen-centric park designed by teens for teens in honor of our community's heroes that have impacted their lives, and especially through a pandemic. There is a video out that promotes the project, or that promotes the award and explains the award much better than I can, so I'd encourage you to go out and see that. But we were honored to receive it. We do a lot of projects, a lot of park projects, a lot of pretty significant ones. This one, on the scale of investment, wasn't that significant, but very meaningful because of who did it. It was an educational project for our kids to learn about local government, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that they did learn, and gives me great confidence in the leadership and of Mishawaka's future. So just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under privilege of the floor? Then we'll extend the same invitation to anyone participating remotely. Is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Hearing none, then we will move into unfinished business, of which there is none new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Mr. Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. Hicksonball. Just wanted to remind the residents of Mishawaka that we'll be hosting our neighborhood watch meeting for Twin Branch area. That will be October 20th at 7 o'clock. The location and the speaker are both to be determined. So I will let you folks know, along with the residents, once we confirm a location and a speaker. The Twin Branch Neighborhood Watch meeting will be October 20th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Any other new business? Then a couple of announcements. First, as was referenced in the discussion with Mayor Wood, at the time of our informational meeting on the ARPA funding, we discussed the fact that there will be further opportunity for community input and collaborative work between the administration and the council as we finalize our plan for spending those funds. So to that end, this evening I'm privileged to announce the appointment of a special committee to lead the council efforts with respect to the ARPA funding. Mr. Mamalenti, has graciously agreed to chair that committee. Mr. Compton will also be serving on the committee along with Mrs. Volker, although, as we've talked a couple times, I suspect that all of us will want to be involved in that process as we move forward. And then last but not least, it is the time of year for us to solicit applications for our appointment to the School City of Mishawaka Board of School Trustees. So we're pleased this evening to announce that beginning tomorrow morning, applications for the school board seat appointed by the Mishawaka Common Council will be available on our website, and then paper copies are also available in the clerk's office. The application period will commence tomorrow and run through October 22nd at noon. Following the conclusion of the application period, the council will conduct interviews of applicants and then reach a decision in November with regard to our appointment to the School City of Mishawaka Board of School Trustees. Are there any other items of new business to come before the council? If not, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.